By popular demand, Darren's been booted off doing MC. It takes too long. Can you not hear me? Right. By popular demand, Darren's been asked not to speak too long, so many of those that know Darren will be thankful of that. But welcome to Nottingham, and welcome to Beeston on this wet, cold Saturday. May I express my thanks and the thanks of my whole branch in your attendance today. It's been really, really good. We were panicking this morning as we were dripping wet under the gazebos and arguing about who would turn up, whether anybody would turn up. But thanks, at any rate, for your continued support for our Keep the Post public campaign and indeed this rally today. Birmingham, please don't do that. Oh, Paul, was it Paul? Thank you, Paul. So we have a number of speakers, and there are a few, so I'd ask that the speakers do try and keep it to a reasonable length of time. We only have one mic, so I'm going to be dragging the mic across and passing it to different people. Now, if I think they are going on too long, I will just switch it off. So, to open the rally, I shall hand the mic over to Billy Hayes, the CW General Secretary. Billy.
Thanks, Simon, and thanks for the fantastic turnout today. Thanks for the food. Me and Dave are sitting here looking. And I think you should give yourself a round of applause because it was such a fantastic turnout. Well, I want to say, obviously, congratulations to the Nottingham and District Branch and the Midlands region on organising today's event, and also all the organisations who've sponsored, and of course the people who are going to speak up here today. Fantastic turnout, long march, and every time we come on a demonstration to keep the Post public, you know, as Simon has just said, you always think, well, it's raining today and it's a bit difficult, you know, we're in a very difficult time. What will the turnout be like? And this turnout hasn't disappointed, and I wouldn't mind betting it's exceeded all our expectations. And of course, we always try to give a little bit of local flavour. So we're in Nottingham, and I use the sick of hearing this when anyone comes, but it's obviously the country of Nottinghamshire. It's obviously the area of Robin Hood. Yeah, where as a fan of Robin Hood, back in the 60s when Richard Green played it, scripts. But some people will remember Richard Green. I know the script in Robin Hood, incidentally, was written by people who were blacklisted in the States under the McCarthy trials. But it was all about, wasn't it, robbing from the rich, robbing from the poor, robbing from the rich, I'll get it right in a minute, robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. Well, what we've got this government at the moment, as far as I can see, you know, we were told that the bankers, the spivs and the gamblers and all those type of people, Vince Cable, do you remember how he castigated the bankers and all the rich people who were making money in the square mile? And now what he wants to do, he wants to give a public service to those type of people, to those spivs and gamblers, and that the main driving force for Royal Mail will not be the type of service that you quite literally deliver to every part of the yacht members, quite literally deliver it to every part of the UK. He wants to make the motive for Royal Mail the profit motive, the very people he castigated not that long ago. Now, of course, the Midlands region is one of the most important areas for the future of government policy. There are 15 Tory and Lib Dem MPs in this region who have a majority of 10% or less. And this means if we can persuade just 5 in every 100 coalition voters in those seats, then the government will take a huge hit. Now, of course, we've got the local elections coming up in England, we've got the Scottish elections, and of course we've got the Welsh Assembly elections, and not forgetting the Northern Ireland elections. And as we turn to the local elections, we're going to continue to put the heat on everybody who's trying to support the sale of Royal Mail, because Royal Mail is one of the key questions in public sector policy today. And today's demonstration is an important boost for our campaign. It follows demonstrations that we've had in Cameron's own constituency in Witney, and the post office has been around, Royal Mail has been around for 350 years. I think it was somebody, it's been a long time since they've seen that kind of demonstration. And similarly, we have had demonstrations in Vince Cable and Ed Davies' constituency. But the government's not listening to our arguments. It's not listening to the people of this country. Whether people voted Lib Dem at the last election, and there's not many of them round now admit to that, but that they were there, or whether they voted Conservative or any other political party, every single poll that we've done on the whole question of keeping the post office public, overwhelming endorsements of Lib Dem voters, of Tory voters, of Labour voters. The British public don't want the privatisation of Royal Mail. On October 1st, more Tories were against privatisation than supporters, and nearly 2/3 of Lib Dem supporters opposed privatisation. The arguments against the bill are pretty straightforward, and the government intends to privatise and break up Royal Mail. Already, as we learned when we met Moya Green, myself and Dave, Royal Mail are now going to be forced to keep 7 separate sets of accounts, and it's obviously what that's leading to. But also, even in the bill now, the break-up and the separation of post office counters from the Royal Mail network, and it puts a whole question mark over the future of that network. But political calculation and cynicism mean they can't admit that the privatisation of Royal Mail will undermine post office branches and result in a massive closure of post office branches. So we insist that post office and Royal Mail, post office counters and Royal Mail should be stay together, despite the warm words of Ed Davey. And it was left to a Liberal MP, Bob Russell, supported by Brian Binley, which I'll come back on to him in a minute, to say, if you really mean what you say about post office counters, why don't you accept what's called an inter-business agreement? So force Royal Mail to have to use post office counter network for 10 years. And Ed Davey would not accept that amendment. So it was a Liberal Dem amendment, and ably supported by a number of Tories, because we know once you separate Royal Mail and post office counters, you're actually killing the lifeblood of the post office counters network. And we also know, in terms of the network itself, 28 million addresses, 6 days a week, to the front door of every single person, every single address in the UK. We know once Royal Mail is privatised, it costs the same to post a letter in Nottingham and deliver it to the Isle of Skye as it does to send it to Derby. But once you break that link, and once it becomes about the bottom line, the service will begin to be undermined. 15 clauses in the current bill undermine the whole question of the universal service. That's that one price that goes anywhere. And we don't have to look to or guess what will happen in the future. We just have to look to what's happening within Europe now. When we were told we had to have a joint venture go into a strategic partnership, postal workers remember the company that was told who know how to do it right. What was that company? TNT. TNT runs the privatised postal service in Holland. And we were told we should be more like TNT. Well, I don't think the British public want us to be more like TNT, who run the Dutch postal service, because prices are twice what they are in the UK. I don't want the British public want us to be more like TNT that runs the Dutch Postal Service, where the chief executive has called the Universal Service Jurassic Park, where the chief executive of TNT is now calling for a 3-day service. And I don't think the postal workers in Holland want to stick with TNT, because recently they had a strike about the conditions and the attack that take place upon their service. That's what the kind of future that people like Ed Davey and Vince Cable have planned for the British public and postal workers. Now, we're at a very crucial stage, as people will know now. The bill is now at its second reading in the House of Lords, and we're using all the muscle we can in terms of defeating the bill. We are the union that has defeated postal privatisation 3 times. Once in 1994, once in 2005, 2005, and more recently in 2009. Now, at the second reading of the bill, Peter Mandelson, do you remember him? Yeah. He's a man, and I can say this on personal experience, that when you first hear about him, you don't like him. And as you get to know him, you like him even less. Because, you know, he accused this union of something. He accused this union in his book, The Third Man, of getting up to every political trick in the book in order to defeat the privatisation of Royal Mail as muted by Peter some time ago. And of course this week he has the cheek to call us the midwife of this current bill. Well, you know, if Peter was to have listened to or read the words that myself and Dave Ward drafted at the National Policy Forum in 2004, and that was endorsed by the Labour Party annual conference, and on 7 separate occasions, even to listen to the party policy, we wouldn't have been in the state we were in with the Labour Party up to the run of the last election. And we wouldn't have been in a position where in 2005, 65% of postal workers voted for Labour, and it dropped to 48% in 2010. Do you know, in 1 minute, Peter Mandelson destroyed all the good work and all the support of people in the party who understood what the danger of privatisation was and what was necessary to deal with. Things like, yes, the pension fund deficit, things like regulation, which has been bleeding the work out of Royal Mail since it was introduced. If he'd have listened once to some of the words, but he decided he saw an ideal opportunity, and it was thanks to, it can now be said, people like Nick Brown, who then cheat with, people like Harriet Harman, and the good sense of ordinary Labour MPs that knocked this particular bill back. So he's obviously a bit of a bitter man. But you know, we're going to keep on fighting against this privatisation. We know the problems that we face, and we recognise that privatisation is bad for this country and it's bad for postal workers. So we've been on this now 3 times, we're on our 4th out. But remember this, in 1994, the bill against Heseltine's bill on privatisation wasn't defeated on its first and second reading in the House of Commons, wasn't defeated in the Lords, it was defeated when it came back to the Commons, and it was withdrawn because it was too controversial. Now, I know the political arrangement is distant, but have we witnessed internationally, you know? Somebody once said a week's a long time in politics. Well, I think the people of Egypt, the people of Bahrain, and the people of Tunisia prove that if you're prepared to get out there and keep up the pressure, if you're prepared to get out there and continue campaign, anything is possible. We fight with a heavy heart. We fight to win. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Billy.